What is up everyone, and welcome to something a little bit different. Recently I unboxed and tested an N64 from Will, or the Tech Plank. Again, massive thanks to Will. But when I received the console, one of the controllers wasn't working correctly. And when I say wasn't working correctly, I mean wasn't working at all. You guys saw me test the controller in the video and it just wasn't detected by the console. If you booted up with this plugged in, it would just say no controller connected. And that went on for ages and ages, and there was nothing I could do about it. So I took a look at the connector and I cleaned up the connector as best as I could. Made absolutely no difference. I tried it on two different N64s, that made no difference. So I couldn't do anything else this end, so I decided to take the controller apart, and the controller cable is indeed attached to the controller. So I disconnected it, reconnected it, wiggled it around, did everything I could, but still no luck in getting the controller to be recognized by the console. Also, here I have the two shoulder buttons. They come out when you take an N64 controller apart. But also I have this little plastic post that unfortunately appears to have gone brittle or whatever. It stays, as you can see, there's one here. You can see exactly where it snapped off. It stays there and keeps the cable in place. So this controller unfortunately now has a defect inside, probably through a fault of mine, but it may have been brittle anyway. I mean, this is old stuff now. So I've decided to do something very, very cool and use this as a parts donor controller. Now, N64 controllers rarely go wrong. In fact, I've never ever had a controller fault. However, there is one controller fault that plagues absolutely everyone. Now, if I bring this absolutely wonderful controller into the frame, this is my N64 controller. And obviously I own all of these controllers, but what do I mean by that? I mean that this is the controller that I grew up playing all of my games with. This is the yellow beast that I've used for everything. And as you guys can see, just moving the controller from side to side, I have a very, very loose analog stick. Now, the analog stick has such an intriguing design on the N64. If you haven't seen anybody repair an analog stick, go and check out one of those videos from somebody else, because they are absolutely fascinating in the way that they work and the way that they become damaged with the plastic dust and everything like that. I just think it's crazy. Now, in this video, it's not going to be too exciting. We're not repairing an analog stick. We're just going to swap the analog stick module from the donor controller, the controller that I can't get to work, to my yellow controller, which will allow my yellow controller to be usable once again. Don't get me wrong, it's usable, but it at the same time really isn't. It's particularly bad, especially the up position is so bad because of all the FPS games, like all the playthroughs of Doom and stuff that I've done. So yeah, that is that. We're going to swap the sticks, and I won't be leaving this controller in pieces. I'll put it back together with this analog stick in it, and you never know, if I ever get damaged buttons or anything like that, I can always steal them from here. But this controller will probably be pretty much a write-off, and maybe something that I can use as an ornament or something. So without further ado, let's take a little look at the controller inside and see what we've got. Firstly, it's a very simple design. You guys, if you're wondering what this is, basically if you look at the back of an N64 controller, it is where your memory card or rumble pack or transfer pack plugs in. It just looks a bit odd without this cage around it. And also, if you're curious about taking apart an N64 controller, it's really easy. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws there. They're all one size, and then 2 smaller screws, one in there and one in there. And I always try and keep my screws in an organised place, just because I've had instances where I've lost screws while taking this type of thing apart. So like I said, the shoulder buttons will pop out when you take apart your N64 controller, which is perfectly normal. This shouldn't happen. You shouldn't snap off your plastic post. Again, probably my fault. But the entire board is now loose. The only thing holding it on is the analog stick module, I believe. So with a little bit of unscrewing, that entire module will indeed come off. But as you can see, the Z button also sits on top of it. So there's the little rubber pad. That is the Z button. And I believe, as far as I remember, you have to unscrew the Z button. I shall take a look at that just now. Actually, no, it just popped out, I believe. There you go. That is the Z button, well and truly popped out. You can see where it connects to the back of the board right here. So that now just leaves our analog stick module here with the plastic bowl and everything. It's just a single piece, and you can buy replacement pieces, and you can also buy GameCube style analog sticks as a replacement, but just be careful what you're buying. There's a lot of rubbish out there, and if you can, steal one from a broken N64 controller like I'm doing, one that's got plenty of life left in it. So once those 3 screws are out, you can actually lift the entire analog stick assembly out of the controller. This plastic piece and everything is part of that one assembly. Now we can get a real good idea of how this analog stick is looking, and as you can see, minimal play. In terms of an N64 stick, this is in very, very, very good condition. But we'll pull the one out of the yellow controller as well, just to see the difference. But we can go ahead and unplug this from the board. This is our good stick, so we don't want to mess it up, so I'm going to be careful while unplugging this. It can be a little bit tight, especially if it hasn't been disconnected before. You can get those plastic pry tools, but I tend to find they're all a bit bulky anyway, and if you do have a little bit of thumbnail or something, that is definitely the easiest way to go about it. So that is a totally mangled and dismantled N64 controller. I'm not going to take the board off just because all the buttons are going to fall out that way, but the entire thing now is just loose, as you guys can see, so you can go ahead and, you know, if you're following this video for something else, you can do whatever you've got to do. That is our Z button, don't want to lose that. But here we have it, the full analog stick assembly. So all we've got to do now is swap it into the yellow controller. So I'm going to put this to one side safe and speed up the footage a little, and we shall disassemble the yellow controller. And I'm going to take much more care doing this, simply because this controller is a massive part of my life, really, as lame as it sounds. I played a lot of games with this thing, so let's go. So I do recommend, when you want to take out these screws, I do recommend that you get the proper precision, sort of very thin shaft screwdrivers. This one is not ideal, but it's what I had on my desk to hand, so that's what I've got. So once you've taken out all the screws, of course, you can just literally pop the controller apart. And I'm going to be very gentle with this one compared to ripping the other one open and breaking something, so here we go. Straight lift up like that, and as you guys can see, there we have it. Okay, so here we have the... Now this looks a little bit different. This does look a little bit different than the other one, doesn't it? Interesting, it's a different colouring. I don't know if it's been changed. I didn't own this controller from brand new. I bought it off a friend at school, or rather one of my friends bought it off another friend at school as my birthday present for £2, I think it was, years and years ago, which, you know, is so nice, because I always wanted a yellow N64 controller. It was sort of like the colour that I strived to get, really. So you saw the nail technique working really well there on the good old analog stick connector. So we can just unclip the Z button, just as we did before. That is now off. Put the rubber safe, and now, of course, we can unscrew the loose stick. Very doubtful that it's been changed, actually, folks. Very, very doubtful. But then again, I could be wrong. To be perfectly honest, this has intrigued me a little bit. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I am definitely in intrigued mode, which is cool. But I'm really glad that it was different, actually, because it sparked that story about my friend and the £2, which is definitely a special memory, of course. It's a pretty cool tale. And I just don't think that kind of thing goes down anymore. I mean, I know, well, it may do, but there's just an abundance of tech these days, and back when you were in the school playground, you know, not that long ago, really. What am I doing? I'm getting distracted by my own stories. Not that long ago, there was just kids everywhere who had the bare minimum, you know, everyone had the bare minimum, and you just saved for what you wanted, unless you were a richo family, of course. But that's how it worked for me anyway. I saved for what I wanted. It meant I always appreciated absolutely everything. Hence the reason why I'm being so careful with this controller, really. And this was a present. So, that's all the screws out. Let's move the controller to one side and compare both of the analog sticks. And hopefully I'll stop talking crap. So, let's take a look. Here we have the one from the yellow controller. As you can see, horrendous. Absolutely horrendous, like really bad. Here's this one. And just look at the difference. You can't show it on video. It's really difficult to show on video. But this has got... yeah, it's just so different. The play in it is just crazy. Anyway, there you have it. Here's the nice analog stick. Let's put this one in the pile of junk controller, and let's slot this guy into its new home. So firstly, let's get it seated where it's gonna be. There we have it, looking good. And let's screw the analog stick back in. So there is the analog stick module screwed back in. We will plug it into the board before we forget. Like so. Be nice and careful. There we have it. Bit wonky, but that is in, sorted. Now we have the Z button to clip back into place. That's not fully seated, I don't think. So I believe that's the correct seating for the good old Z button. Now all we need to do is pop this bad boy back on, and we will test this prior to putting the other controller back together, because that is definitely not a concern of mine compared to testing this one out and really giving it a good go. Make sure all the buttons work, etc. Of course, if the shoulder buttons do happen to pop out, then it's important to try and get them back in, if you want shoulder buttons, that is. And I assume you do. Okay, good stuff. There we have it. Everything's plugged in, everything's back together. Now we can put the back on and screw this bad boy back together. I'll just put a couple of screws in it for now, just as a little sort of test, if you like. That way, if there's something wrong, we can then take it apart much more easily. I should have cleaned it at the same time really, but I'll do that at a later date. I'm just too excited to test out the new stick. So let's put, say, 2 screws in it or something like that, just to get it staying together. So we have 2 screws in it, and here we have it. Doesn't look any different, but there we have it. Look at that lovely stick action there. So everyone, you are now looking at my monitor, and we have the yellow controller connected. New stick, much tighter. And I have, just to celebrate, let me put the screen kind of trying to get it straight, I guess. Yeah, whatever. To celebrate, I'm gonna play my favourite N64 game of all time, and that is Doom 64, baby. Okay, let's not get too weird about this. Okay, so the stick is working, but of course this is just the menu. So firstly, let me just simply remap my controls ever so slightly, folks. Bear with me for a second. So things are looking pretty good. I've remapped my controls. Default control scheme in Doom 64 is horrendous, obviously, but just by giving it a good little whirl here, I can feel that the stick is working. Let's try all the buttons. Yeah, all the buttons are working. Oh man, I'm so chuffed. So awesome. A little bit bewildered here and playing really badly, but here we go. This is mega, folks. Really nice to have my yellow controller back up and running, back to its former glory. A former glory that I haven't had for a good couple of years now. You know, the stick has been unplayable for a long time. I don't remember the last time I used the yellow controller, unless there was one short while after I sold one console bundle where I was a little short on controllers, and I think we had a 4-player Mario Kart or something, and due to that I had to dig out the yellow controller. I feel sorry for the poor sod, whoever used that one. But holy crap, this is working really well. Everything on the controller is working absolutely brilliantly. I'm going to places where there's usually enemies on Nightmare, so I'm really messing it up. Go baby, bit of chainsaw action. I'm sure you guys wanted to see a little bit of that. Oh yeah. Oh yes, please. Stuck. Ha. So everyone, as you can probably tell by now, the controller is working really well. If I just do like a little slight movement, just move the stick a tiny bit, it is working. Everything is absolutely great. So it is days and days later, and I'm happy to report that the controller is working really well. However, while editing this video, I noticed when I was looking at the clips really close up, obviously, you know, 1080p and everything, I could really see how much grime was in this thing. And when I was doing the swap of the analog stick, I didn't really notice. I was just going about it, you know, and doing it, and I could see that it was a bit dirty, but man, it is really bad. So what I've decided to do is pull out the camera again, and instead of using the original outro clip, I've decided to dismantle this controller once again and give it a bit of a clean up. So I've got various cleaning supplies here. Nothing which is groundbreaking, but I'm just going to do the best with what I've got. So firstly, I've got a can of air. This will be handy for getting rid of all the dust that's inside the controller, which is good. I have some kitchen roll, because that is always handy. Nice thick tissue kitchen roll. I have a pot of cotton buds. We call them cotton buds here. They are called Q-tips in other parts of the world, I think. Just, you know, these little doohickeys. Also great for cleaning your cartridges. And I was going to clean some of my games at the same time, but I've decided I'm going to dedicate a whole day to cleaning my games, and also making a video covering it as well, and chatting a little bit about it. Sort of a redo of the video that I did about 6 or 7 years ago. And what else do we have? We have got just some spray. This does say disinfectant cleaner on the label, but in here is just like a soapy liquid. It's refilled. Just, this used to be disinfectant, but now it's just, yeah, whatever it is. I'm not even too sure what it is. But we've got a few things that I've gathered together, so we will dismantle this controller once again and give it a thorough good clean. So all the screws are out once again. I don't know if I mentioned the fact that I've tested this controller thoroughly, because I've been playing through Donkey Kong 64 using this controller. So yeah, it's so far so good. Now this side is going to be the hardest, I think. We're going to move this side out of the way for a second. Now I noticed the majority of the dirt build up around all of these edges, both on this side and that side of the controller. But this one is going to be harder to get to because it's quite a thin space, but we'll see what we can do in terms of getting in there. The first thing I'm going to do is blow all of this out, but I'm going to do it off of the desk, otherwise we're just going to make a whirlwind of dirt for ourselves, and that's not going to help the situation at all. So that is that with the canned air. I left the camera recording just in case I wanted to insert a bit of the sound effect or anything like that. But the next port of call, I think, is to get a cotton bud. We need something thinner, really, like a blade or something to get in there, but I'm not going to be too finicky about this, folks. We're just going to get one of these and go around all of the edges, trying to make it a little bit cleaner, really. So let's get a bit of the old dirt on this. A bit of the old dirt, a bit of the old spray. It would really help if I could speak during a video, wouldn't it? Okay, and we're gonna take a little look at the dirt along the edges. Oh, and it is picking it up. There we go. So I'm gonna go round the whole edge of the controller. I've got to hold it quite close to my face because when I record at this angle, the camera is between my face and whatever I'm doing, so it's quite a distance. So I'm gonna get closer and get right in with this. I ended up taking all of the buttons out, guys, because look at the dirt that just gets caked around the buttons. Ugh, absolutely awful. So after seeing how grimy the buttons were and trying to continue tackling the controller with cotton buds and stuff on my desk, I decided it would be 10 times easier, since I had the whole thing apart now anyway, just to throw it into a washing up bowl, fill up the bowl with warm water and soap, and get an old toothbrush and really go to town on every single part of the controller. And I'm really glad that I decided to do it. So I'm actually recording this voiceover just after completing the clip that you guys are watching. So the controller is currently drying, but before we get to the drying part, I rinsed off all of the soapy water with normal cold water, which was just to basically get rid of all the bubbles and stuff, make sure there was nothing left so that it would dry nicely with no streaks or anything. And then I left it to dry, and it is currently drying as I speak right now. I'm going to leave it overnight. It's nice and warm in our kitchen next to the fire there. So I'm going to come back to it tomorrow and see what it's like. So it is the next day, and here we have the controller all completely 100% bone dry. The first thing I'm going to note about it is because I've washed it, all of the natural grease and stuff that builds up over time on the controller is now washed off. So although it may not look brand new because of marks that simply won't come off, you know, here and there, it feels brand new, which is really nice. So it's got no grease on it or whatever, and also it's not as clean as I would have thought it would have been, but it is so much better. It's amazing how hard it is to get all of the grime off something like this. Now, if I was painting it or anything like that, really, if I was really ultra going to town on it, I would have done a lot more scrubbing in the sink. I scrubbed it for a good, 5 to 8 minutes, and I wasn't willing to dedicate any more time to it really, because this project doesn't really benefit anyone. It's nice to have a clean controller, and the analog stick thing was the main thing, but yeah, it's now nice and clean, and I'm going to reassemble it, and we're going to take a look at how it is put together. But if you go back to the start of the video and look at the difference between these parts especially, there is a colossal difference, and these parts as well around here, massive difference. So it's probably going to take me quite a while to reassemble, so I won't record the whole thing. I'll just show you guys the finished controller when it is finally back together. So here it is, folks. After what was meant to be quite a simple, short process of sitting down for 10 minutes and changing the analog stick, I've come out of the other end with what I would now consider a fully refurbished controller, in the sense that it is now 100% playable with a fantastic stick, and I've been playing it like that, but now it's also super clean as well. Now you may be able to notice little marks here and here, here, and just dotted about everywhere, some on the back. These are all battle scars that tell a story really, and while I don't remember how this controller got felt pen on it, it is what it is, and that's what makes it special. I'm not a collector in the sense that everything has to be pristine. This is my controller and it is how it is, but now that it's got all of the gunk and grime out of it, it's 10 times nicer to look at. Hasn't got, you know, these dark edges around the seams of the controller. So what we're going to do now to finish it up is to boot up the game that I'm currently playing at the moment, which is Donkey Kong 64, and see if all the buttons still work. But I will say, in terms of putting the buttons back in, it is really easy because they can only go in one way, so you can't accidentally put them in upside down or anything like that. All of the C buttons remain the same because you can only put them all in one slot in all one direction. And then the shoulder buttons are pretty much the hardest buttons. They're not hard, they're just annoying because when you're trying to put the top case on, the shoulder buttons are made up out of 3 parts. You've got this outer plastic piece, the button itself, then you have the rubber sort of gasket bit, and then you have the board itself. The board doesn't fall out, it stays in its slot, but the rubber can ping about all over the place, so that's just something to look out for. And also the routing of the cable. There's 2 posts. Make sure it goes under the first one, in between the 2, over the top, and then out. Otherwise the controller won't go back together properly. So there we have it, N64 controller. Let's give it a whirl. So folks, let's plug it in. Apologies for the creaking, that is my stool. We will turn on the monitor, turn on the sound system, and fire it up. Now, I'm not expecting any issues with this controller. It went back together absolutely fine, so the start button definitely works. Okay. Okay, so with DK, let's test everything. Here we have the analog stick working perfectly. Let's test the A button, perfect. B button, excellent. Z button, brilliant. Shoulder button, yes. Other shoulder button doesn't do anything in this game, but I assume it works. And let's try out all the C buttons. So I can happily report that this controller is working perfectly. So that is that, folks. If you're in a similar position to me and you want to use your original N64 controller but the stick has gone a bit loose, stealing a stick from another controller is probably, well, definitely the easiest and cheapest option. In terms of repairing the stick, I may look at doing so in the future. I've got a lot of N64 controllers that could do with some stick maintenance, so we'll take a look at that. But in terms of this video, that is that, folks. There's my N64 controller, all done and dusted. I can now continue using it, and hopefully this has given it another 5 to 10 years of life. As always, everyone, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.